The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Hi folks, welcome to Aging Horizons. Today we'll be talking about Medicare. Did you know that over 210,000 Montanans are receiving Medicare benefits? Well, you know, Medicare changes and your situation changes during the year. And the purpose of the show is to keep you up to date on what those changes are, plus the wonderful people out there we call SHIP people and how they can help you. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
I think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
If the Aging Network in Montana was a restaurant, the sign out front would say, over 50 million meals served over the last 30 years. Since adequate nutrition is critical to health and quality of life, nutrition services are an important factor in keeping older Montanans healthy, independent, and living in their community and home. To find out more about senior nutrition programs in your area, call 1-800-551-3191.
Final call from like 566.
Hello, gentlemen. May I see your Montana Real IDs?
IDs? Why, I'm Captain Meriwether Lewis.
And I'm Captain William Clark.
Hang on, I see more than one William Clark.
It's the real me, I promise.
Discover more at mtrealid.gov. Available now.
Montana Real ID. It's the real me.
And me.
Elder abuse is a growing problem, and it's happening right here in our Montana communities. At least 1 in 10 older adults are victims of physical or emotional abuse, financial exploitation, or neglect. To get help or report elder abuse, call your local area agency on aging or Adult Protective Services at 1-844-277-9300.
Hi folks, welcome to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm your host, Brian Lamore, and we're continuing our discussion every month about Medicare and you, how important it is, how things are changing. Of course, we have a special guest today. We have Kimmy Everman, who does special projects at Department of Public Health and Human Services. Welcome to the guest seat.
Thanks very much. It's always a little weird.
A different viewpoint.
That's right. But love to be here and talk about Medicare.
Same with me. Kimmy, let's, as I remember that Medicare was coming out with a new card for everybody.
Right.
And the new card had several benefits, and it was going to come out during certain time periods.
Right.
Could you tell us more about that?
Right. Well, we're in the spring of 2019 now, and everyone should have received their cards by now, and in Montana, they should have received them by last fall.
Yeah.
The Department of Public Health in DC set them out in waves, so you should have that by now. But if you don't, we want to talk about what you should do about that. First, though, I do want to just talk about the card a little bit and how it's changed. Now, instead of having a person's social security number on that card, there's a randomly assigned number, letter, sort of a number that the person uses for their Medicare card now. And no one else has it, and it's randomly selected. But that's another thing we need to talk about, because it doesn't mean you're safe with that card. You have to keep it safe from people stealing it from you, because they can still use that number to, sort of break into your Medicare. So even though your identifying information is off, be sure that you're keeping track of where that card is and who you're letting take copies of it. But yeah, everybody should have their card by now. But I do want to say that you can use your old card until January 1st of 2020. So we have about a year and a half. No, actually not. Just about 6 or 8 months. And you can use it till then. But if you haven't gotten it, let's just talk about what you should do. Okay? First of all, look around your house. Is there any unopened mail? Did something maybe slide behind a book or something like that? It's going to be in a nondescript envelope with probably CMS on it. But even if it doesn't, if it's old and sitting around, you might have missed it. So check that. And and actually, what you're looking for, because I just checked my notes, is a plain white envelope from the Department of Health and Human Services. Okay. So let's say that's not the case. You don't have it. You can't find it anywhere. Sign on to the mymedicare.gov, which, Brian, we've talked about many times. And mymedicare.gov is a way for Medicare beneficiaries to have their own account online with up-to-date information on what their benefits they're using, etc. You can go there and get your new number, or you can print your card right from there. So if you have access to a printer, you can print your own card. There you are. Or if you don't want to do that, or you don't have a computer, you call 1-800-MEDICARE, okay? And just let them know that you haven't received it. Maybe your address is wrong in their files. It might be as easy as that, and they can help you out. And of course, I don't want to forget our shift counselors, because they are always glad to help with things like this.
Well, now, you mentioned that you want to keep it secure and not really share it outside your medical providers. Is there a possibility that there are scams that are going on with Medicare cards?
There are, and I guess I just want to remind our viewers that, first of all, Medicare is never going to call you uninvited and ask you to give them that kind of personal information. It will never happen unless you've said to somebody at Medicare, please call me and we need to talk about this, that, or the other thing. It's going to have to be instigated by that beneficiary. Things like health fairs. I just heard about a health fair a couple of weeks ago where some people were there taking or trying to get people's numbers. Don't give those out at health fairs. Keep it to yourself.
Exactly. So in the new Medicare numbers, are they something that you can memorize easily, like your Social Security number?
Well, I guess. I mean, here's an example of one for John Smith. It's 1EG4TE5MK72. I guess so. I mean, we were able to memorize our Social Security numbers, although I sometimes forget mine at this age. But yes, certainly you could. But the good news is that that's randomly assigned, and it is very protective of your information.
You mentioned don't give your Medicare number out to someone who calls you. They say now about 50% of our calls are scammers. And they're going to call up, they're going to ask for something, they're going to sound like the IRS, your health provider, this, that, whatever. Just don't give it out unless you initiate the call.
Exactly. And you know what, Brian? I bet you have too. I've had those calls come to my home, and they're kind of frightening and intimidating sometimes. However, keep your head, stay sensible, hang up.
Hang up. Don't.
Because those guys are not calling to get information from you unless, as you said, you've made that a thing that you want to have happen.
You initiate it. And they are scary. Sometimes they're friendly, but don't give that number out.
And just because they tell you the sheriff is coming, it's not true. It's not going to happen, and you just need to hang up the phone.
Hang up the phone. And
And maybe report it to your sheriff after that.
Or you can initiate your own call to Medicare or that health care provider.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, we're drawing to a close on our first segment so quickly. They all go by so fast. There's so much information to keep sharing. In our next segment, we'll be talking about certain programs that you might be eligible for. Of course, we'll recommend a SHIP counselor help you to see if the various programs apply to you. Great information. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Every generation produces heroes, men and women who step forward to defend our country in time of need, no matter the personal cost to themselves. And though we can never fully repay them, we can make sure they have access to low-cost, long-term care when they need it. That's what Montana's Veterans Homes are all about. If you've got a hero in need in your family, call us. We can help.
In Montana, we know all about responsibility and personal accountability. Don't pay another medical bill that you don't understand. Take charge. Review your medical bills and call your provider right away if you have questions. If your bills are too confusing, call Montana SMP, the Senior Medicare Patrol. Call 800-551-3191 and get connected directly to a local office. Call Montana SMP today.
Sergeant Jones. Please respond. I was separated from my squad. Requesting backup. Anyone? Please respond. I'm all alone here.
Gentlemen, this is a secure federal facility. Do you have your Montana Real IDs?
ID. I am Captain Lewis, and this is Captain Clark.
I'm sorry, I can't let you in.
Can't go into a federal facility, can't fly. Let's go back to the river.
Yes, we'll float home. Let me check the Google. What's a dam?
Discover more at mtrealid.gov.
Montana Real ID. It's the real me.
Welcome back to Aging Horizons. I'm your host, Brian Lamore, and we're continuing our discussion about Medicare. In this segment, we'll particularly talk about parts B and D and how there are special programs out there, if you're qualified, that can help you make the premiums either partially or fully, but there are some requirements for that. And of course, we have our SHIP counselors that are out there to help you sort through all this stuff. Rejoining us, Kimmy Everman. And Kimmy, define what B and D are and how they're important and what kind of programs can help make those payments.
Sure. Well, let me just back up a minute and I'll say that remember that our Part A of Medicare takes care of us at the hospital. Mm-hmm. So that's what we would call catastrophic or major, medical, whatever, but that's the Part A. And people generally get that premium free because they've worked and paid into that system, and so they're getting that premium free. So B then, as you said, that's that outpatient, and that's the kind of insurance where you're going to the doctor or you're going to the lab to have something done or you're having physical therapy, things that you do outside of a hospital. Part C is the conglomeration of all the parts, so you get your A, your B, and your D, and that D is for drugs, so the RX program. Now, the Part B has a very special and wonderful program to support folks financially, and it's called the Medicare Savings Program, or MSP. They might hear that as well. It's been around for a while, and those of us who've worked or advocated for Medicare beneficiaries love this program because it is so helpful. What it does, Brian, is as a basic benefit, it's going to pay the premium for Part B for that beneficiary every month. That's kind of a basic part of that. Yeah. There's several levels that you can get in the MSP program. The one that you get the most support is called QIMBY. That's a qualified Medicare beneficiary, and they not only pay or get their premium paid for each month, but also deductibles. They have help with co-pays. So when you go to the doctor and you have to pay $10 on the spot, that might be something that would be paid through QIMBY. Yeah. And so people that are eligible for the program, Medicare Savings Program, get to keep $200-300 maybe extra each month of their very limited income to pay for heat, clothing, food, or maybe you just want to go on a trip. Yeah. Or maybe you want to buy your grandchild a gift. Yes. This is things we all want to do, and I want to just really encourage folks that are thinking they might be eligible. Call a SHIP counselor and find out. The worst that can happen is you're not eligible. Yeah. But if you are, you get great benefit from it. And we always say it's that extra money that you get to keep in your account that you would have put out for Medicare, that you can use to live. Yes. Because we also know that these folks on these limited incomes, it's very difficult to pay everything every month. Oh, yeah. And so this is very helpful for them. So the other levels of the Medicare Savings Program, I said QIMBY, which is the qualified Medicare beneficiary. Then we have SLIMBY, which is the specified low-income Medicare beneficiary program. Now in SLIMBY, you could make a little more money each month, and they pay the premium for Part B only. They're not going to pay deductibles or co-pays, but it's still, Part B is in the $170 range anymore, and that's a good chunk of change to keep in your bank account if you're eligible. Then there's another one called QI, which is in this program. Again, you can make a little bit more money than the first two levels, and again, they're going to pay just the premium. Yeah. Again, though, that's a good chunk of dough to keep in the bank for other living expenses. And finally, there's one that.
Oh, the Big Sky, right?
Yes, I was going to say that. Thank you. Yes. That actually is a homegrown program, Big Sky RX, and that kind of goes along with our other topic, which is the LIS, or the low income subsidy for Part D. Yeah. That is also something you want to visit a SHIP counselor about, because if you're eligible for the low income subsidy, some of the same things that Part B covers for Part B will be covered for Part D. Premiums, out-of-pocket expense, deductibles, depending on what level you're eligible for. And it's all you have to do is call up a SHIP counselor. I'm sure they can put the number on the screen and say, I really would like to talk about this. And they'll set up some time, or maybe right there. Yeah,
and you can talk to them about any questions you have about Medicare, your billing, whatever's happened. And having worked for DPHHS, I know these SHIP people will also see if you're eligible for aging programs. That's right. And that can help them a lot.
Right. And also back to the Big Sky RX, if you're not eligible for the low income subsidy, we also have what I said was that homegrown program to Montana, the Big Sky RX program. That's for people that make even a little bit more. Yeah. And they also pay the premium each month.
They pay the premium, but you can maybe get on Meals on Wheels.
Absolutely.
You get things delivered. You get advocates for you.
You may be a caregiver who needs some respite. There's all kinds of things that we can, lay out as a menu for you.
Yeah, we kind of call that one-stop shopping.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Very important, so that people don't have to run all over looking.
Yeah, and then many times an individual might say, well, I wasn't eligible for one program, I'm not going to apply for the others. And they'll help you with that.
Absolutely. You just don't know until you apply. And anymore, Brian, they're making those applications easy as they can.
Easy as they can. And we'll be right back in our next segment, and we'll be talking about preventative benefits. Stay tuned. Summer in Montana is a great time to visit your local farmer's market. Enjoy the social atmosphere while shopping for a wide variety of fresh, locally grown produce. Together with both WIC and Senior Farmers Market nutrition programs, you help feed your family 5 or more daily servings of fruits and vegetables for better health. You also help local ag producers and enhance the state's economy. So, for summer fun that's nutritious and helps Montana's economy, shop at your local farmers market.
"45 years, 2 packs a day. It's like $80,000. I thought I was just hurting myself until I fell asleep in a chair with a cigarette. The whole house went up. I lost it all. I knew smoking was expensive, but I never thought it would cost me everything."
The human heart. Even at its strongest, it's a fragile muscle. Chest and arm pain, shortness of breath, are signs of a heart under attack. But 3 numbers can save a life. Dial 911 at the first sign of a heart attack. Quick response from medical experts can save your life.
I was 45 and it happened to me, a heart attack.
Dialing 911 saved Ryan's life. Now he's here and he's healthy.
This message sponsored by Mission Lifeline Montana.
Every 65 seconds, someone is affected with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Many become isolated at a time when help is most needed. If you or someone you love is affected, help is available, both for people with memory loss and their caregivers. Memory loss can feel frightening, but you are not alone. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
Hi folks, welcome back to Aging Horizons. I'm your host, Brian Lamore. In this segment, we'll be talking about special preventative benefits. There are certain ones when you initially enroll, and there are benefits that are yearly that you can annually take advantage of, and there's a few in between there. And Kimmy, tell us more about these wonderful benefits.
Sure. You know, Brian, I love the opportunity to encourage people to be proactive, because so many things with our health can be really resolved easily if we get on it right away.
Yes.
Of course, not everything, but one thing that Medicare has done a great job of is to create a program of preventive benefits so that people can be proactive. And not only does that help the person in their health, it helps the financial strength of a plan. So their Medicare is stronger for finding things before they become huge and very, very expensive. So one of the first things that comes along with this is called the Welcome to Medicare visit. And you do this within the first 12 months that you have Medicare Part B. Okay, you're outpatient. And at that visit, it's going to be a sort of a baseline builder. They're going to the doc that you meet with is going to review with you your medical and your social history that you know is part of your health, your education. You know, they're going to do some counseling about preventive services, etc. What they're going to also do is some screenings. They're going to maybe screen for diabetes if that's something that you have in your family, or glaucoma, or whatever you might have mentioned about your history. There might be a screening to have happen. You're going to be discussing flu and pneumonia shots. Now we know that, especially for those of us, you know, marching on in time, we really need to have one of those every year to keep us from getting dangerously ill. So very good time to talk about that. And remember, they're no cost. You're going to get it at no cost to you. And you'll get referrals for other care in this welcome to Medicare visit. They're going to look at your height, weight, and blood pressure, a calculation of your body mass, that BMI, and they'll give you a simple vision test, talk with you for risks of depression and your level of safety. Again, because we know that as we age, we are somewhat more vulnerable to depression. And so, you know, finding it here can alleviate so much pain and sadness. They'll talk to you about, you know, creating an advance directive.
Yeah.
That's a thing that we really do need to think about with our medical care. And then just a plan with the doc of how to go forward. What screenings do you need into the future? Shots, preventive services. And so that's a baseline for you.
Yeah.
So when you go forward, you know where you've been. Okay? And then once you're getting into those preventive screening services, boy, there's a huge menu that you can look into. I don't have them memorized, but I want to read just a few because it's a massive list. They're going to look at abdominal aortic aneurysms, alcohol misuse, bone mass, cardiovascular disease, cervical and vaginal cancer, colon rectal screening. You know, again, these are things that as we age, we need to be aware of. Depression and diabetes screenings, glaucoma tests, hepatitis B infection screening, lung cancer, HIV, mammograms, nutrition therapy, obesity screenings, prostate cancer screenings, just tons of things. And then for the shots that you can get, flu shot, hepatitis B shot, and a pneumonia shot. And one thing that you can look into is also the shingles shot, because that's another one that as we age, folks tend to maybe have a little problem with that, and boy, that's no fun. If you've ever had shingles, you know it's not any kind of thing you'd wish on anybody. And these are ways to get around that.
Get around them. You know, when you went down the list there, I was thinking, I know people who have died from every one of those conditions because they didn't know, and it's really sad. But I don't want to say it's preventable, but once you become aware of it, the doctor can start preceding it. And you mentioned baseline. So many people don't have baselines. What's normal for one person isn't normal for another one. So those preventative benefits are so important, and that's all covered, right? I mean, there's no out-of-pocket expenses.
That's right, Brian. I'm so glad you asked that, because that's one of the greatest things about this is it's a preventive benefit that Medicare really wants you to take advantage of, and you're not going to be billed for it. If you go to, now I want to just, there's a disclaimer. If you go to this Welcome to Medicare physical or wellness visit, and it's something is found that's not a part of this, and you have to have tests or some other treatment, that's a different story. But in terms of everything we've talked about here, there isn't any, you don't even have to have paid your deductible for the year in order to get this at no cost. So there's really no good reason to not do it. Right?
But if they do find it and you're on Medicare, they do have some health care coverage benefits for that.
They have a yearly, then you get a yearly visit as well. So it's all wrapped up. Call a SHIP counselor.
Call a SHIP counselor, get some information. And in the former shows that I've done, they said, you know, sometimes you forget when to do something. Do it around your birthday.
There you are. Great idea. That's a great idea. And I'm going to say it one more time. Call one of our fabulous SHIP counselors. They're the best advocates in the world, and they know just about everything. If they don't, they'll find out.
And they're statewide.
Absolutely.
And they don't have anything to sell that's sitting on the shelf. So that's a benefit to you.
That's right. That's right.
Well, we're quickly drawing to a close on the entire show now. And I'd like to thank Kimmy and our audience for tuning in and making all this information available. The first step, call a SHIP counselor. That one step can get you going down the right path to have the benefits that you deserve and that you've paid for. For Aging Horizons, I'm Brian Lamore. Thank you for joining us.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.